Welcome to Cowes. Welcome to the 2024 Round the Island race. I think it's going to be a lively day tomorrow. You would not believe the amount of discussion and everything else that has gone on in the last week just to get to this point. Believe me, it's been stressful, I think is the word that I would use. All right, we'll speak up a bit. So, welcome to the briefing. For those of you who haven't got a blooming clue who I am, I'm Dave Atkinson. I'm the race director. As someone said the other day, I'm where it goes, and it's my backside that's in the sling at the end of the day. So, I hope you have a really good weekend. Certainly, this is an improvement on what we've had in the past, and let's hope that tomorrow when you get out on the water, you can have an equally good day. So let me introduce to you the brains trust behind me. By the side of me now is Penny Tranter. She's a meteorologist. So she knows what's going on and what you lot are going to cop tomorrow. Tom Cheney. He's got so much experience, it's unbelievable. And how many times have you been around the island? 20-something. All right, 20-something times. So if he doesn't know how to get you round, you've got no chance. And you've got Mark on the end, who's our safety officer. So, how are we going to do this? Right, you may have seen, we've broken the race down into stages. So, stage 1, Cowes to the Needles, then Needles to St Cat's and so on. So what we're going to do this evening is talk through the weather and then the tactics for each stage. And I genuinely believe this is going to help you get round. So pay attention, please. We'll run through all this and then Mark's going to do a bit of safety stuff at the end. We'll then come off the live feed and we'll go to a Q&A. Okay, so without any further ado, over to you, Penny.
Thanks very much, Dave, and good evening, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? Oh, fantastic. Okay, so you all know it's going to be a very lively race. Anybody that doesn't know it's going to be a lively race? Okay, it's going to be a lively race. So what have we got then? We have got low pressure dominating our weather. It's going to make it unseasonably windy for mid-June tomorrow. I'm sure most of you are probably already aware of that. And when the sun does come out, it is going to feel quite warm. But when it's not out, it is going to feel quite cool. So I'm hoping you can see the weather chart at the moment. Can you see the weather chart? Brilliant. So there's that big area of low pressure. Can you see the isobars around the southern side of that low pressure area? And what we've got as well is we've got a little trough coming through later this evening, which will clear through the early hours of the morning. So that's going to bring some showers, and that's just going to pep up the winds as well. But our main piece of weather frontery that we have to keep an eye on is that little purple curl to the west. Can you see it? It's got a little low wrapped around it as well. That is currently forecast to come through for the start sequence. Sorry about that. And then on the next chart, we'll be able to see that that goes through probably about 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. But can you see we've got some other little fronts out to the west? So what they're going to do is they're going to pep up some showers as we go through the afternoon and the evening. What else can I tell you? So we're going to have lively winds blowing in from between the south-southwest and the west. And particularly in and around the start and when we see those showers, we are expecting to see gusts over 30 knots. At this stage, I'm looking at them probably being no higher than about 34, 35 knots. But if you do catch a really squally shower, particularly on the start, you know, you are going to see some very strong gusts indeed. As far as the wind strengths are concerned, the least strong winds are going to be in the eastern Solent. But having said that, the winds are going to be coming over the island, so they're going to be very gusty for you. So when you're near, say, a gap, a land gap or a valley, like Wootton Creek or the Medina, you are going to see it become really quite gusty indeed. And also the sea state. It is going to be choppy. It is going to be moderate, particularly in the Solent. As you go around the back of the island, it's going to be rough. So the latest sort of heights are looking at around about between 1.5 and 2.5 metres for those rough seas. So I just want to put it in perspective and context for you. Okay, so let's have a look then at the start. No, let's start at the expected clouds you're going to see, first of all, sorry. So our top picture there is probably very similar to the clouds you're going to see on the start. So we're going to see a lot of cloud, we're going to see a lot of ragged cloud bases, indicative of showers, indicative of downdrafts, indicative of wind shifts and wind increases. Once that goes through, sort of around about 9, 10 o'clock, we're going to see brighter skies, we're going to see some sunshine, but we're also going to see some cumulus clouds, like you can see in the bottom left there. So we have a little rule of thumb. Check the distance of the base to the top of the cloud. If that is larger than the distance between the sea and the cloud base, you're likely to get a shower. So the taller the cloud, the more likely you are to get a shower, and the more likely you are to see very gusty conditions as a result of the downdrafts. So just wanting to put out there the type of clouds you're likely to see and what they're likely to give you in terms of wind shifts and also wind gusts. Okay, so coming on to the start then. So the start, we got this weather front coming through, and it's going to give us a band of showers. Some of them are going to be squally. It's not a clean front which just moves through and everything's tickety-boo after it. It's going to be a very messy start in terms of the winds. So generally speaking, we're looking at 235 to 260, a mean of 12 to 20 knots. But ahead of that weather front with the squally winds, it's probably going to back. It's going to back a little bit, more to 210 to 235 at times, still 12 to 20 knots. And we could see gusts up to 30, even as high as 34 knots on that front. So just to say that it is likely to be quite an interesting start for various reasons. The sea state, as I say, is probably going to be choppy, moderate. It's going to be particularly like that over the Bramble Bank. And as I say, the squally showers will move through the start sequence. Now, moving on to stage 1 then of the weather. So what we'll see is that those squally showers will move through by about 9 o'clock. And as you can see from the weather chart there, it does look a lot drier. It looks a lot brighter, a lot of sunshine as well. But we will see further showers coming along as we go through the morning into the afternoon. So winds are going to be 235 to 260, increasing a bit, 16 to 26 knots mean, and gusting up to sort of 32 knots or so. And now for the stage 1 tactics, I'll hand you over to Tom.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Oh, good. Oh, good. So tactics-wise and strategy-wise, tomorrow I think stage 1 of this race could be the most chaotic and challenging for a lot of people out there, just because it's going to be very windy, as Penny said, and there's a lot of traffic near the start, and all the fleets will be relatively close together. The tide is going to make a massive influence on the first leg and the second leg, and everybody should be starting in positive tide. The tide turns to be going towards the Needles at around 5:30 in the morning, and by the time we've all started, it should be pumping pretty hard. So tidal strategy up the Western Solent, when going upwind is quite easy because they've marked it out with these nice big red and green channel markers for you. So you stay in the deepest water, and the Solent, the Western Solent, I think we've got a forecast of 230 to 260, but the Western Solent tends to end up being a fairly square beat in windy conditions like that, and there will be some little lefties coming out of Newtown River and out of Yarmouth, so try and do your port tack as you're going past those rivers, is a little tip from me. And then when you get to Hurst, this is where you really need to start worrying about the current on a windy day like tomorrow. So we're going to have very strong wind against tide, and that can cause some very lumpy water over near Hurst, and just after Hurst over towards the Shingles Bank. It's very easy to get caught in overfalls there. So as you approach Hurst, you've got all that tide pushing you west, so don't get caught too far to the north of that channel, and make sure you don't overstand the Needles, which is very easy to do. At the Needles, there is a wreck that most of you probably know about, and a rock, and there's a gap that on a normal round the island day we'd expect to see most people, or a significant proportion of the fleet, trying to get between the rock and the wreck. This is really challenging in lumpy conditions. The wreck is a couple of big iron boilers. This is a photo I took 2 years ago of a bit of wreck at low water. You do not want to hit that. So I would advise making sure that you know where that wreck is, and probably staying well outside it tomorrow. I do tend to go and try and find this wreck every now and again, and it's very reassuring to look on your chart plotter or look on Navionics and see that it is where they say it is. So just make sure you keep an eye on that as you round the Needles. And then that's on to stage 2. There's a new tool at our disposal this year from the organisers, which is going to let us get a result in our handicap classes for each of these stages. So as we finish stage 1 at the Needles, we can look at the tracker, and you get a ranking. And then same again at St Cat's and over at Bembridge, you see, so you might round the Needles and be 20th, and then get to St Cat's and you'll get a handicap place of, say 10. We've gone up 10 places, which is a nice feature. And there's actually some prizes for most improved through the race as well. And now I'll hand you back to Penny for stage 2 of weather.
Thanks, Tom. So stage 2 then is running from the Needles down to St Catherine's Point. And here the winds are obviously going to be coming off the English Channel. So they're going to be pretty consistent in direction, apart from in and around showers. But we're generally looking at 235 to 260, and meaning 18 to 26 knots, and then gusting up into the low 30s, especially in and around any of those showers. So obviously we're out into the English Channel on the back of the island, so the state of the sea is going to be a little bit more than it is in the Solent. So we are going to see some rough seas, especially over the overfalls at St Catherine's Point. And again, we are going to see a mixture of bright and sunny spells, but also some showers. So again, watch out for some shifts in wind direction and also speed for stage 2. So for the tactics, back to Tom again.
So we did stage 1 with the tide underneath us, pushing us towards the Needles, which is great, makes our life easy apart from the lumpy bits. Stage 2, unfortunately, different story. This is a pretty simple leg navigation-wise, one headland to the next. But if we want to stay out the tide, we have to stay to the north of the rum line. So this is going to be a slightly different decision depending on what your boat is and how fast your boat goes. So this is probably a hotter leg than downwind VMG. So you're not going to be sailing as deep as you can. So there's probably a benefit for most people to stay low of the rum line initially and then come up later. Having said that, there are a couple of rocky bits, some traps inshore there, a couple of ledges, so make sure you know where you are there. Those are quite a sharp, steep rise off the sea floor, so easy to run into. And then you also have to bear in mind that if you've gone low of the run line into the shallower water to stay out of the current, you're going to have to come back up again. So it's a windy day tomorrow. If you're carrying spinnakers, just bear in mind, give yourself enough room. You might need to be able to drop that kite to come back up to the headland if you can't sail that high with a spinnaker. Back to Penny for weather.
Thank you. So looking at stage 3 of weather then, which takes us from St Cat's up to Bembridge Ledge or Foreland, we're still looking at winds blowing 235 to 260, 18 to 26 knot mean, and again gusting up into the low 30s in and around showers that we are likely to see come through on the flow. But they are going to move through really quite quickly in that wind. But there's just a couple of points I wanted to make about the winds on this stage. We've got a potential local increase between St Catherine's Point and Dunnose because of the high ground there, and also into Sandown Bay as well, due to wind funneling through the land gaps. The alternative in Sandown Bay is if the wind does go down around to the left, we could see some wind bends. So again, we're going to see moderate or rough seas, and we're still going to see a mix of bright or sunny spells and some showers. So for the tactics for stage 3, let's see what Tom's got for us.
So I think strategy-wise, tactics-wise, this could actually be the most complicated and challenging bit of the race for most people tomorrow. That leg from St Cat's to Dunnose is probably in roughly the strongest tide against you, and there's an enormous gradient between being right offshore and even only 100 meters offshore in terms of how much current you're pushing against. So it's probably important for everybody to be trying to stay inshore, but then if you've got boats with asymmetric spinnakers and you're trying to jibe in and out, that could be really challenging. So a sort of low slow mode to stay out of the current might be better than sailing what would be your normal angles. And then from Dunnose to the Cardinal to Bembridge, we have to go across Sandown Bay, which, as Penny just mentioned, wind-wise, you can see a sort of a bit of a bend and a bit of a wind shadow in Sandown Bay, where if the wind goes left, you get lifted as you sail into it on port tack, and then you get lifted again as you sail out of it on starboard, which is bad. So the temptation there to sail into Sandown Bay to stay out of current doesn't always pay off. So there's a bit of a coin toss for you to do here as to whether you decide to sail north of the run line to stay out of the current, or stay offshore where you might have more wind, more consistent wind, but you'll have tide against you. And then at Bembridge, you can often see lots of boats arriving at Bembridge Cardinal at the same time, which often makes things quite exciting. So again, traffic management is pretty important, and having your wits about you as you get to the Cardinal. Also, this is probably, you'll have had a lovely time sailing with a spinnaker for a few hours, and suddenly you've got to remember that you have to give yourself time to take that down and go upwind. So we often see lots of messy spinnaker drops and messy mark roundings at Bembridge, so give yourself some time there. On to stage 4, back to some weather.
Thanks, Tom. So stage 4 then is from Bembridge round to the finish. And as we're coming up into the eastern Solent, we're going to see the winds less strong here, but still pretty lively. Still coming in 235 to 260, 16 to 23 knots, and gusting up into the low 30s, especially in and around any showers. So the one difference for the eastern Solent is that you've got the wind blowing over the island onto eastern Solent, and that always makes it a little bit more gusty. And it's particularly gusty when you're passing any gaps or valleys, so like Wootton Creek and the Medina. So just be aware of that. The sea state is not going to be as bad as it will be round the back of the island, but still it's going to be fairly choppy, especially over Ryde Sands and the Bramble Bank. And we keep the sunshine and showers theme going as well. So again, we could see some big shifts in wind and also changes in wind speed in and around any big showers. And so let's see what the final stage brings in terms of tactics from Tom.
Yep, so as Penny's just said, Bembridge, particularly the Bembridge to Ryde bit for me, is often tricky, puffy, gusty conditions. There's going to be quite a spread in tidal conditions for you guys, because obviously there's a huge range of sizes of boat participating in the race. So some people are going to still have quite strong tide at this point, and other people are going to be doing this in slightly slacker water. Regardless, this is going to be, as I said before, a spinnaker drop into a reach, a sort of fetchy reach from Bembridge to Ryde Sands, where there's some quite shallow water. There's also an obstruction at Seaview, which is marked by a big orange inflatable mark. You're not allowed to sail inside the moorings at Seaview. I don't think there's actually a picture in the sailing instructions this year, but it's very obvious when you get there. And you will immediately think, oh, there's the moorings, I'm not allowed to go inside. So, yeah, just keep an eye out for the big inflatable mark. The current, as I said, is probably against for most boats, so there's a temptation to stay up and stay inshore. Remember where Ryde Sands is. It sticks out a very long way. And again, at the bit just down the end of the Solent there, there's a very steep bit of Ryde Sands just after the forts, where everyone's going to be pushing to be in the left if they've got tide against them, and it's incredibly easy to run aground. If you don't run aground there occasionally, you're not trying hard enough, really. But you will see boats aground at Ryde. Maybe try not to make that you. And then similarly from Ryde up to the finish, depends when you're there, but is often tempting to sail in towards the island, into Osborne Bay for tidal relief, which is probably the right thing to do, but you can get some quite big shifts around the headland just before the finish. So just be kind of ready for some chaos near Norris, big wind shifts, 30-degree wind shifts. Yeah, and then also make sure you cross the correct finish line, which is, again, easy to mess up. So make sure you know which class you're in and which side of the big committee boat you need to finish. I think that's it from me tactics-wise, but we'll get a little summary now of the weather from Penny.
Thanks, Tom. So I just thought it might be useful for you to have a summary of the weather conditions that we're expecting for tomorrow. So just to reiterate, starting with the winds then, that at the start, 235 to 260, 12 to 20 knots. But as we see that little squally front come through with the showers, the winds could back to 210 to 235, and we could see some gusts up into the low to mid-30s, particularly if you get caught out in one of those squally showers on that front. Thereafter, for the race, we're generally speaking looking at 235 to 260, still 16 to 26 knots, and gusting up into the low 30s, especially in the showers. Although the winds are going to be less strong in the eastern Solent, they are going to be very gusty, as Tom and I have both mentioned. Sea state, it's going to be choppy wherever you are. The roughest of the seas is going to be around the back of the island. And the weather, we're going to see those squally showers at the start then, but then after sort of 9, 10 o'clock, we'll see a mixture, pretty much like we're seeing at the moment, sort of bright or sunny spells, but there will be some showers coming through. Temperatures, nothing to write home about, but if you are out in the sun, whoopee-doo. That's if you're not getting splashed by the sea. And the sea temperature is 15 or 16 Celsius. So thank you very much indeed. That concludes the weather and the tactics. And now we'll hand over to Dave for Mark. I'm so sorry. Mark, I'm looking at him, for the safety update and the brief.
Thanks, Penny, and everybody. Can you all hear me? Good start. Weather info is just to back up what Penny said. Windy means what? Smack on the head, being blown over in a squall, come back up again, sort everything out. It's about keeping one hand for yourself and one for the boat, making sure you don't go overboard. Really helpful to us. There's a picture of a lifeboat there. It's my lifeboat, so to speak. I also happen to be the operations manager for the station here, so we're very pleased that you're supporting us in this race this year. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm also a long-term member of the Sailing Club. Been boating for probably 60 years now. Doesn't feel like it at times. So it's a general view. It's not that you've had all the technical stuff. You've had all the important stuff about what you need to know. What's more important is about your decision to go to sea. Obviously, from the group of people here, you're probably experienced, done this before, been there, seen it, done it, probably experienced conditions like we're going to get tomorrow. But there's a lot of people that aren't. This is a race for everybody, and a lot of people come to do this race. It's possibly their only race of the year, possibly their only race they've ever done, if they don't have the right experience and don't want to come back. So, given what you've heard, would you like to have a discussion between yourselves and the crew about whether you actually want to go tomorrow? The club has been getting a lot of telephone calls in the last day or so saying, we've looked at what's coming and don't think it's for us this year. It's a wise decision not to put to sea, I have to say. I have to make a decision sometimes whether we should put our lifeboat to sea. It may seem surprising that no, lifeboats don't always go out when they're asked. If the conditions are not safe, we don't go. We get a bigger lifeboat to go. Sometimes even they say, not so sure about that. So it's about preparation, isn't it? There's all the rules, there's all the regulations about international sailing. You all know what they are. It's simple stuff. Your guardrails safe? Are the stanchions upright? Are they secure? Is your radio working? Have you fully charged it? Is there backups? Do you know where it is? Have you undone your... Sorry? Speak up. Okay, Mike. Yeah. So it's simple things like, have you unpacked the life jackets since you've been here and blown them up, and make sure they stay blown up and then pack them up again? It's the simple stuff that will often let us down. We'll come and help, you know that. That's what we're there for, along with all our Coast Guard friends and the independent lifeboats. There's a lot of people will come out tomorrow to support this race. So we'd just like to ask if you're going to do the same on our behalf. You've heard the Tom and Penny talk about what the conditions are likely to be. Risks involve pushing your luck at a mark, a turn in the course. I think there's going to be plenty of sea room tomorrow. There's unlikely to be 1,000 boats on the water. So you've got lots of space. Plan your tack, your turn, your hoist, your drop, whatever it might be. Look around you. Make sure that you've got enough room to do what you're going to do. Just consider it. I've already talked about the radio. It's so important to us on the maritime safety side. We can hear you. We know what the problem is. We know where you are. We know how many people are on board and how okay you are or not. There's an okay sense in the voice of this isn't good. Don't get overly worried and tongue-tied about the language. Mayday, 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 blah, 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 blah. Who are you? Where are you? What's wrong? Someone will come and find you, hopefully. And make it clear who you are. It's all simple stuff. Last year was blowy. We didn't see all of it coming. And I have to say some of the rescue side of it was a little bit stretched. But we did manage to get to see everybody who was there. The tracking, the mobile phone tracking, it's been offered by the Island Sailing Club for many years now. I hope and assume you've all signed up to it. It is important to us, please. We need to know who you are, where you are. It's often in a pack of 20, 30 boats. You've got a problem. We need to come and find you. And using the tracking, we can do that from the safety, so the race box here in Cowes, and look on the computer screen. and just say, yeah, that's where they are, and just tell the lifeboat. We have Coast Guards with us for the day. There's lots of information going backwards and forwards. I know all this sounds a bit heavy, and it sounds like it's all going to go horribly wrong. No, it's not. Those of you that are well experienced with well-found boats, with a lot of knowledge of the waters around here, will probably have a very cracking race and really enjoy it. But just look out for each other. It's a great tradition on the sea that you do help one another. You will get redress for any time spent going to somebody else's assistance. So if you can help, please go and do that. It's the right thing to do on the sea. Very simple message: safety first, it's safety second. I've been around for a very long time, boating, not just sailing, working commercially, lifeboating, goodness knows what. I'm still here with all my fingers and toes, done some very reckless and dangerous things in that time, only because some very good people have taught me, don't do that, lad, you'll get hurt. So have a lovely race tomorrow. Those that go round will probably, hopefully, have a cracking time, and you'll remember it well, and then just encourage more people to come next year. But I do hope it's going to be much better weather.
Okay, I've just got a couple of points to raise. One of the issues that we get every year is the ferries. Now, I know you don't want to tangle with them. They don't want to tangle with you. So can I ask that if you come across a ferry, either down that end here or down there, you hold your course as long as you can, because the ferries don't want to hit you, and they're going to do heaven and earth to keep out your way. But if you keep tacking backwards and forwards, they haven't got a clue where you're going, and that's when we get into trouble. So please, and it's a simple thing, and it affects the whole race. Eyes out the boat. Think about what you're doing. You want to have a good day. I want to have a good day. So let's all work together to make sure that we both have a good day. As I say, as Mark said, we need to do this safely, and the winds tomorrow are going to stretch that to the extreme. So that concludes the sort of first part of this. So thank you very much. Have a good day.